From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover, a 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover, a 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. You're listening to Career Indaba Radio, the voice of Africa's labor market. Real voices, real change, real opportunity. The conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, from township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. The conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, from township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works. Hello Africa! Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org. From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. It's more than just an expo, it's a blueprint for Africa's future. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, 20 bootcamps. Career Indaba, where skills meet opportunities. Career Indaba, where skills meet opportunity. Join the movement. This is where the impact gets real. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. Live from 27 to 31 October, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. 5 days of bold action, live job bulletins, market access for SMEs, and skills pathways that open doors across Africa. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. Career Indaba, where skills meet opportunity. Join the movement. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. A 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership.
All right, good evening. My name is Matthew Parks from the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU. So welcome to this Impact Week Boardroom Takeover conversation. So not just talking about ideas, but trying to shape practical, actionable solutions for South Africa's labor market, the African labor market. So today we're unpacking a topic that sits at the heart of economic transformation, impact investing and job creation ecosystems at Career Indaba. This is meant to be about the voice of the African labor market, and that means looking at how capital, innovation, purpose can come together to create decent work, skills development, and sustainable livelihoods. So I think at 7, we'll have a colleague joining us from Uganda. But I think maybe from the South Africa side, one can say that we have a combination of an economic crisis, where the economy is sitting at 1% economic growth for the past 20 years. You really need to be sitting at 3% economic growth. You want to reduce unemployment. We're sitting at 43% unemployment rate, and that's obviously a ticking time bomb. If you look at youth unemployment, it's talking about maybe 70%. And because of our legacy of apartheid, colonialism, institutional discrimination, etc., often in reality, the color of one's skin, one's gender, disability, if you live in a rural area or in a city, if you live in a suburb or a township, all of those would basically predetermine if you're able to find work, what is your access to skills and training opportunities, what's your ability to access capital to set up your own business. So I think the idea about this kind of career endowment is to see how do you try to uh, provide advice to young people around skills, career opportunities, even around setting up their own businesses, SMEs, etc. I think also to kind of say what are the kind of the opportunities for economic growth, to create businesses and so forth. Also critically often is that to connect people to educational skills, training opportunities and so forth, not just at school, but beyond school. What are the training opportunities available to people to enter colleges, post-schooling? What are the opportunities for people to access tertiary education, universities? What are the funding opportunities to help people to access it? Because often it is expensive. Whether it's in state funding like there's National Student Financial Aid Scheme, or funding also for workers to access training programs at the workplace through the sector education training authorities. But also, what are the kind of areas of study that one should pursue, which will lead to employment? You don't just want to study for the sake of studying. We want to study to help you find a career path which will uplift yourself, your family, and so forth, like in the sciences or engineering and so forth. But also, not everybody needs to be an employee. You also need to create people who can become entrepreneurs, who can employ other people. And what are the opportunities which are likely to help people to succeed? So I think those are the kind of the things. I think also about, how do you kind of strengthen the linkages between South Africa and the rest of the region or the rest of the continent. We've been talking about the African continent of free trade area for some time. You have the Southern African Customs Union, Southern African Development Community, etc. Also, East Africa, West Africa, Central, North Africa, they have also economic communities as well. So how do you begin to provide linkages between the two? If you don't do so, then it makes it very difficult. South Africa, for example, can't remain a relative island of prosperity, so to speak, whilst the rest of the region, the continent, struggles to attract investment, to create jobs, etc., because that creates a really difficult flood of migration to South Africa. And South Africa already has a unemployment crisis. So you really need to see how do you support a Zimbabwe, a Mozambique, a Tanzania, etc. How do you help create economic development, and how do you help create linkages which can support each other's growth, whether it's on electricity or rail, whether it's on roads, agriculture, mining, and so forth. So I think those are the kind of the things. I think in South Africa, we've gone through a difficult economic period in the past 10, 15 years. We had a real problem of corruption and mismanagement of the state. And that has had a huge impact upon ability of the economy to grow, to create jobs. But I think we've also seen the government now in the past few years has been able to one by one try to undo the damages, try to rebuild the state, and try to put the state in a better place to support economic growth. Whether that's around ensuring a competent, a clean tax authority, whether it's ensuring that the electricity authority, utility can provide reliable and affordable electricity, whether it's making sure that the freight railway network can transport or mining or manufacturing or agricultural goods to the destinations, or making sure our ports are modern and efficient to get exports and imports through quickly and efficiently. So I think all of those are the key issues. And South Africa's issues are not necessarily fundamentally different than the rest of the continent, maybe at the scale, sure, but the linkages and the principles largely the same. And there's a bit of an umbilical cord between South Africa success and the rest of the continent, the rest of the region. The two need to go together. I think maybe that's a bit of some introductory comments. Maybe perhaps we can go to an ad break or something like that.
From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality. This is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. You're listening to Career Indaba Radio, the voice of Africa's labor market. Real voices, real change, real opportunity. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. A 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. Hello Africa! Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org.
Okay. Welcome back. So today's show we're discussing the issue of impact investing. It's not just a buzzword; it's a movement. And one that asks a simple but powerful question: how can money make meaning? How can investment directly translate into jobs, to dignity, to opportunity, especially for young people, for women, people in rural areas or in townships, people with disabilities, who are really struggling and standing at the doors waiting to be let in. So to give people a chance, an opportunity to exceed and also to contribute to broader society, to contribute towards economic growth, towards creating jobs for other people. So people often ask, what is impact investing? So it's not just a question of, people investing in an economy or a society or community for the sake of simply making a profit. Yes, they must do so. No investor is going to invest just for the fun of it. They're not going to throw money away. But to say when you invest in a community, can you invest in a way which makes a difference to that community? So trying to balance the two. And often if you look at, for example, what in South Africa, the Public Investment Corporation does. So the PIC, it's the largest investment fund in the continent. It's worth about 3.5 trillion rand. So it invests government employees' pension funds largely. It also invests the Unemployment Insurance Fund, the Compensation Occupational Injuries and Diseases Fund. So largely it's workers' funds. So yes, it would, for example, invest funds as it must do in a way to secure those pensions, so workers, public servants can retire in comfort. It also invests the insurance funds too, so that workers, when they need it, whether it's for maternity leave or injury on duty, that they are covered and taken care of. But it doesn't just invest for the sake of investment. Yes, it must secure return on investment, but won't just, for example, just invest to create a shopping center, or it wouldn't just invest offshore. It'll try to invest in a way which grows the South African economy, also in the African continent as well. It'll try to invest in a way which creates jobs, sustainable economic growth, try to promote, long-term economic growth. So look at investing in industrial development, creating clothing factories, investing in agriculture and so forth. And to look at investing in construction. It'll invest in infrastructure, in building roads, electricity lines, dams, power stations, and so forth, because those create economic growth. And if you don't have economic growth, you don't have the infrastructure, then you won't be able to long-term create jobs and so forth. You need to see a thriving economy which creates jobs, because that's why you're going to ensure long-term sustainable economic growth. And pension funds are not divorced from that. If you don't have economic growth, then you're not going to be able to secure the investment of pensions. So the two go together. Equally, too, people often forget that workers support relatives are unemployed, and if you don't have long-term economic growth, you're going to continue to put an unbearable burden upon workers. So workers too need to see other people becoming employed, so they have less people they need to support, and they're able to maximize the salary. If a worker has to support 7 relatives who are unemployed, that cuts the salary into 7 slices, so to speak. So the two go hand in hand together. Impact investment also speaks about sustainable economic growth. So that means, can we grow the economy which doesn't or minimizes damage to the environment, allows the environment to heal and so forth. So can we support investments in renewable energy, reduce the carbon emissions and so forth? Can we look at when we manufacture clothes, for example, look at including plastics, recyclable plastics in the fabrics, etc. When we invest in agriculture, can we look at doing some ways which conserve water, look at recycling water, looking at, planting indigenous fauna and so forth, so that you enable the soil to heal, you use water efficiently, you don't allow water to go to waste, etc. So it's a bit of a rethinking the whole way we manage the economy. So having less approach of just simply producing for the sake of it, but more also how can we ensure sustainable growth? How can we ensure we take workers with us, workers whose jobs might be at risk? Can we invest in their reskilling and so forth? And also make sure that the environment itself, the natural resources too, can be preserved longer term. Because you just simply use stuff, you don't replenish it, ultimately you will see that you'll run out of space, you'll run out of resources to grow. So that's part of the thought. There is a lot of money out there in the world, and a lot of investors are keen to see how do they contribute towards sustainable economic growth. So that's where the impact investment really comes in. So it's not just about profit, producing a good, it's also about the workers at the place where you work. It's about the communities where that company is working. It's about the environment, and really seeing how do you ensure longer term that we shift the way we do things to be one which protects the planet, protects society, and ensures sustainable growth. And that's also key to businesses too, because if they simply operate in a slash and burn approach, ultimately they'll run out of customers, they'll run out of resources to produce, and customers to sell it to. And companies can't thrive if you're living in an environment which is destructive. So yeah, so that's kind of large what impact investment is going about. I think from here we can do another commercial break.
From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. You're listening to Career Indaba Radio, the voice of Africa's labor market. Real voices, real change, real opportunity.
Okay, welcome back. I think we'll be joined soon by a colleague. But I think some of the issues that have come up in our normal discussions, that we have a medium-term budget policy statement, which the finance minister will table at Parliament in about 3 weeks, the 12th of November. A lot of people will be looking at that because the state has got a critical role to play in growing the economy, and the minister's got a lot of difficult tasks to juggle simultaneously. Number one is, can he ensure that public services have the resources that they need to provide the services that society, workers, businesses, the economy depend upon? So people often make the mistake of simply thinking that, well, government is a nuisance, we shouldn't have it. But it's government which paves the roads, provides water, provides electricity that companies depend upon. It's government which provides the healthcare to ensure that kids can be born safely, can be healthy, and so forth. It's government which provides police officers to keep communities safe. It's government which provides schools to educate children so when they go into the workplace, they have the skills the economy depends upon. So, Gorongwana will have to make sure the state has got that. And it's got a difficult task because there's limited resources available and there's so many competing, all equally legitimate demands. He also has to say, how does he help stimulate the economy? Again, economy sitting 1% economic rate of growth. We need to get it to 3%. So can he help stimulate it? Can he help to provide financing for small businesses to grow? Can he help provide industrial subsidies to key parts of the economy like manufacturing? Can you also make sure that the infrastructure allocations, which is about 1 trillion rand over the next 3 years, can government make sure that's being spent correctly and so forth? That's about investment in roads, in water and electricity, in schools and hospitals, police stations, universities, etc. Those themselves also help create jobs, but also more critically, they help to unlock economic growth. And it's about also making sure that the state-owned enterprises have the support they need to provide the functions that they are mandated to provide to the economy. So can we give support to Eskom? The Minister for Electricity, Sputla Ramakgopa, has been talking about correctly how to make electricity more affordable for industries. We see many smelters, foundries closing because electricity is becoming increasingly unaffordable. So how do you help reduce that? Because that's key, not just to make it easy for those businesses, but see how do those businesses do well so they can create jobs, they can help create value chains in their communities and so forth. Government's done largely well to overcome the challenge of load shedding, but even there's the issue of load reduction. Eskom's got a fatally flawed model right now that half of society pays for electricity before, like any other company, any other product. Other half of society gets an electricity bill later, and they will choose whether or not they want to pay, when they pay. You have many people connecting illegally to the electricity grid. So that creates a crisis because you could imagine operating a petrol station with half your customers paying, other half thinking about paying. You wouldn't survive long. Governors, provided a significant debt relief package to Eskom of 253 billion rand in the past couple of years, but you can't do that forever and a day. And the fault lines are worrying because that relief package has given Eskom real support, and that's key to every single business in the economy. But at the same time, you see municipal debt owing to Eskom doubling in the past couple of years from about 40 billion rand to about 95 billion rand. And that's because not everybody's paying. So you got to move or even revive what we had in the first administration after 94 under Mandela, Masakane campaign, getting everybody to pay for their services. You've also have to fix Transnet, and there has been some progress in fixing it. But to give a scary figure, 2 years ago, Transnet was transporting less goods, half the amount of goods it did then than it did in 1994. Yet the economy has doubled in size. So that's a crisis. And it's not just a question of, being an irritant to government, but Transnet is critical to our mining industry. Mining industry is the backbone of the South African economy. If mines cannot transport the materials, the core and other minerals to their destinations, then they're in deep trouble. And we had a situation where some of the mines had to stockpile the goods they're producing. Mining industry is a huge source of employment, 440,000. It's a huge source of revenue to the fiscus through taxes. So if Trans is not operational, the mines struggle. Similarly with manufacturing, we produce a lot of goods, whether it's cars or clothes, chemicals, and so forth for exports to other economies. If they're sitting stockpiled, they're in trouble. We will lose customers. We don't have the space to necessarily hope for other, other countries to be patient with us. Similarly, it's critical for agriculture. Again, a major source of employment with about 1 million jobs. But agricultural goods can't sit on the docks waiting to be uploaded to a ship and to be sent off. They'll rot. So again, it's critical. There's the urgency time. So we've seen progress at Transnet. And again, if you fix Eskom, that adds about 1% to economic growth. If you can fix Transnet, that can begin to add another 1% to economic growth. We've seen this past few months with Transnet's improvements at the real interventions. Mining is beginning to uptake. There's been about a 7% growth in the latest report about mining. So that's critical. Other things too, similarly, other SOEs, not as large, but equally critical. The Minister for Transport recently announced that we've managed to produce 300 passenger rail locomotives, or trains rather. This week, there's a target of 600 by 2035. We'll exceed that easily. But an efficient, affordable, reliable, safe passenger railway network in our cities, that's key to the economy. That means workers can get to work on time, quickly. You reduce road congestion, you reduce the amount of accidents and fatalities on the road, you reduce the wear and tear on our roads, etc., and the amount of money spent maintaining them. But also passenger rail is much cheaper for workers. So that also saves money in their pocket, which means they can spend money in the local economy, buying the food restaurants produce, buying clothes for their kids, etc. So that means more money stimulating the economy, creating jobs, sustaining businesses, etc. One of the difficulties is around local government. If municipalities can provide water, sanitation, quality roads, electricity, it makes it very difficult for companies to operate. We've seen in some of the rural towns, companies closing because the municipality is not providing basic services. You've seen even in the cities, your capital flight, investor flight from many areas because quality of municipal services, etc., is not there. So these are kind of the issues that the minister needs to address. But once you address these things, then they will grow the economy. These are the fundamental issues. You also need to be saying, what more can we do? We need to provide really much more industrial financing to grow the economy. We shouldn't be providing 20 billion rand a year. We should be talking about, can we provide 100 billion rand a year from the state, from the developmental finance institutions like the Development Bank, the Industrial Development Corporation, but also the PIC, the Public Investment Corporation too. Can it coordinate with government its own investments to really help support economic growth? Can we also provide financing for SMMEs, etc.? The private banks have also got to come to the party and so forth. And whilst you do these things to grow the economy, you also need to be saying, how do you help provide a pathway to employment? So can you look at public employment programs like the Presidential Employment Stimulus, which has hired thousands of teaching assistants, pays a minimum wage, provides them with the skills, the confidence, experience needed to find longer term jobs? Can you replicate that kind of success across the state, across the private sector? Can you ramp up internship, artisanship programs, really to help young people find their first job? The first job often is the most critical one. Once you find their first job, employers start looking at you because you begin to populate a CV, you begin to have the skills and the confidence and experience needed to be useful to an employer, etc. But these kind of public employment programs, like the presidential employment stimulus program, is far too small. Talking a few 100,000, we need to be talking about 2 or 3 million. And again, we should be spending 100, 200 billion rand a year on this kind of employment programs. Obviously not for the longer term, but for the next 5, 10, 15 years. That's the kind of thing we should be doing to get unemployment going, from the 43% right now, which is a disaster, to getting to, the 15%, the 5%, the 10%, which is a much more manageable rate. Um, Obviously, these things cost money. Government can't print money. So where do you get the money from? Partly, obviously, is dealing with the issue of corruption, wasteful expenditure, reprioritizing the state, definitely. It's also about how do you mobilize private sector investment funds and so forth to come on board. Also about how do you mobilize funding from the PIC, the DBSA, the IDC, etc. But the other critical part also is about how do you ensure that everybody pays the taxes which are owed to the state? You can't just have a scenario where some people pay taxes and others choose not to pay taxes. You've got to make sure that everybody pays the taxes which are owed to the state. Otherwise, that will put you into a crisis longer term. And you've also got to make sure that the SARS, the South African Revenue Service, has the resources it needs to collect the tax which are owed to the state. Currently, during the decade of state capture and corruption, SARS was at the epicenter of it. It was deliberately weakened because some people didn't want to pay taxes. We've seen it's had a real challenge in making sure that tobacco, liquor industry, other major parts of the economy pay the tax owed to the state. So there's been a real turnaround in SARS. It's managed to increase tax compliance from 61 to 64% in the past couple of years. Each additional 1% of tax collected, that's about an extra 20 billion rand to fund the state, to fund public services. SARS needs to be given resources. So and SARS has shown that it's a wonderful investment. For every 1 rand spent on SARS, it collects about 111,000 rand of taxes. So that's key. But if SARS can collect taxes, that means the state's got the money to hire teachers, to hire police officers, to hire nurses. It's got the money to invest in roads and water, electricity. It's got the money to create public employment programs, to provide social grants for the unemployed, etc. So those are the kind of things a minister has to do. And if he can get it right, that's going to help grow the economy in so many different ways. So I think maybe I've talked enough now. Maybe we can go for a commercial break for a few minutes.
If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. A 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. You're listening to Career Indaba Radio, the voice of Africa's labor market. Real voices, real change, real opportunity. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover, a 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. Hello Africa! Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org.
Okay, well, we're back now. People might have seen about a few days ago, there was a major announcement. South Africa has been removed from something called the FATF, the grey listing. I think most people would not understand what exactly does that mean, how is it relevant to life. But basically, South Africa had been put on a grey list, so basically on the naughty corner, so to speak, by the United Nations Financial Action Task Force. And that was the reason for that is that we were seen to have soft laws, a lot of gaps in our regulations with regards to the movement of money. We were seen to be too soft on corruption. Our laws seem to be too porous with regards to dealing with money lost from the state, money being laundered, money coming in and out of the country. It's very easy for criminals, for syndicates to move money in and out. And the state of the banks will not have to do much about it. So that was not a good thing. It is a problem for society because it meant it's easy to steal money from the state, to launder money, accumulate from criminal activities, etc. And obviously, this meant money lost that should have been used to invest in infrastructure, to invest in hospitals or schools, employ police, etc. It also was a problem for workers and for the economy because many international investment funds, pension funds across the world won't invest in a country which is grey listed. The rules don't allow it. They don't want to see their investments being at risk to being lost, etc. And in an increasingly globalized economy, you're competing with 197 countries. So if you're in the grey listing, you're in trouble. So South Africa was grey listed in February 2023. Government had to put in place a lot of efforts to address it. Parliament had to pass legislation to tighten various issues. The Reserve Bank, the private banks, Treasury had to put in place a lot of additional measures to make sure that money is monitored more closely. That people with money which they can't explain are asked to explain it. If they can't, that money can be attached, etc. The South African Revenue Service also had to put in place systems to question people who have got suspicious amounts of money flowing into the account, flowing out of the account, etc. So quite a bit of effort on that part. And so South Africa being removed from the grey listing after 2.5 years of really hard, solid work is a positive thing. It means you're more attractive now to investors. Money flowing to the economy means more economic growth, means more jobs being created, more businesses emerging, etc. It also means that money given to the state to fund public services has got less space to be stolen, to be lost, etc. It also means it's more difficult for criminals, for drug syndicates, for terrorist elements, etc., to use South Africa to launder money. So that's a positive thing. Won't resolve everything, but that's one additional positive good news. I think we can stop there. I don't know if the colleague has joined now, but I think if she has, can we check if Professor Rubina has been able to join, or any other guests? Otherwise, we can do a short commercial break.
From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. This is not just another talk show. It's the pulse check of a working continent. The job market, where policy meets people and numbers meet names. From factories to futures, from data to dignity. We don't just count jobs, we build them. The job market, only on Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover. A 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. Hello Africa! Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org.
Okay, we're back. So there's been lots of discussions this year about South Africa, trade relation with the US, African trade relation with the US, the African Growth and Opportunities Act, AGOA. AGOA has been one of the major boost to Africa's economic development. It's been in place for more than 25 years. And it's basically provided tariff-free access to most African exports to the United States, which is the world's largest economy. It's had many positive impacts. Many African countries export quite a bit of goods to the US through it. It covers about 34 sub-Saharan African countries. South Africa has been the major beneficiary of it, as the leading, industrial economies in the African continent. So a lot of South African car exports go to the US. About 27,000 or so cars exported every year to the US. The Fords, Ranger, Buckies, produced in Pretoria, elsewhere, even Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, VW, a lot of those exports are built here in the Eastern Cape and KZN and Gauteng, sent to the US. A lot of South African agricultural exports, like the citrus farms in Limpopo, the Western Cape, a lot of their goods go to the US, macadamia nuts and so forth. A lot of chemical exports sent to the US, and those are given kind of preferential tariff-free access and so forth. It's also encouraged a lot of US companies to invest in South Africa too. We have more than 600 US companies invested here. That supports, hundreds of thousands of jobs. It's also had the unintended benefit as well of supporting African economic integration. So, for example, the car exports from South Africa, which are assembled here, the steering racks produced in Tunisia, the rubber for the tires, and so on, produced in Cote d'Ivoire, the wire harnessing in Botswana, the car seats in Lesotho. And then the cars get assembled here in South Africa, sent to the US. If you look at Botswana's exports to the US, it's about $1 million a year, not that much, albeit a small country of just under 2 million people. But so that Botswana exports to South Africa is about $120 million that are then included in South African exports to the US. So that's a major thing. Similarly, a lot of the exports from Lesotho, clothing exports, go through South Africa to the US. AGOA is expired now, the end of September. And of course, the US has imposed, significant tariff increases on exports across the world. But there is discussions and positive signals from the US Congress to renew AGOA, to extend it for 2 years. And the thought there is that if you extend it for 2 years, that can continue to enable this preferential tariff-free access to African exports to the US that benefits African countries. Can also allow more thoughtful discussion about how would a new AGOA look like, because as well, much as the AGOA has had many positive impacts, there's been some limitations too. Most of the exports from Africa to the US has tended to be largely oil, other mineral exports, diamonds, etc. So not processed products here that would create more jobs. South Africa being the exception. It's been the one which sends manufactured goods, cars, clothes, agricultural goods, etc. Many African countries actually almost have no export to the US through AGOA, often because those countries the producers may not be aware of it. They may not have access to logistics, to roads, to ports, etc. May not know how to market the goods in the US. US retailers, consumers may not know about these goods, etc. So there's a way to kind of support those African producers to have access to capital, to marketing, to logistics, to retailers to sell their goods to the US. So that's part of the thought. But the logic is to extend it for 2 years now to enable that kind of thought to take place, and then to see what can be done to really try to turn things around. So I think that's partly some of the thoughts in that regard. It also benefits African countries, especially South Africa too, because right now you do have a bit of a challenge of whole porky costs of tariffs being set by the US on South African and other African exports to the US. If you can have a single uniform tariff regime, that means African countries can be complementary and working together. If you have South Africa at 30%, you have Lesotho at 15%. That creates a problem because then you might find companies leaving South Africa shifting to Lesotho to take advantage of lower tariffs. And that can create a lot of instability and unhealthy competition, where you actually want everybody to be on the same level playing field and seeing how do you collaborate together. If you have South Africa have 30%, Botswana might decide, well, it doesn't make sense to export through South Africa. And that creates all sorts of unintended consequences and so forth. So you really need to see how do you help build regional economic integration, not how do you disrupt it. I think let's take a bit of a commercial break, and we should hopefully getting a guest to join us soon.
If unemployment is a crisis, now what? We are moving from talk to action. Career Indaba Impact Week, the Boardroom Takeover, a 5-day live broadcast activation from 27 to 31 October 2025, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Hosted by Career Indaba board members leading Africa's biggest conversations on employment, skills, youth empowerment, and inclusive growth. Bring a pledge, a placement, or a partnership. Catch us live on careerindaba.org and all our social media platforms. Career Indaba, the voice of Africa's labor market. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. Career Indaba Channel, the voice of Africa's labor market.
Okay, I think we're back. Colleagues might have seen a really positive announcement this week by the Minister for Transport. There's a company in Gauteng, Gibela. It reached a historic milestone this week. It produced a 300th passenger rail train in South Africa. This is an industry which died some years ago in South Africa because of corruption, mismanagement, etc. There's been a real concerted effort by government, by the Passenger Rail Authority, by Gibela, the consortium, to revive that local industry to build trains here. So they have a target of building 600 trains by 2035. They've managed to achieve 300 to date. I think they'll easily beat that target of 2035, seeing that they're already halfway there. These are quality trains. You can see them being rolled out across South Africa. Safe, comfortable, efficient, and so forth. A necessary revival. And that's created thousands of jobs in the local industries, provided wonderful skills to these workers. So that's a major development, but I think it's going to actually exceed the target. The Minister of Transport also announced major plans, which will take time to achieve, but given the size and scope of them, but to extend passenger rail services from where they are currently right now, which is in the cities, Johannesburg, Gauteng, Durban, Cape Town, and so on. To say from Gauteng to Limpopo, from Messina to Polokwane to Pretoria to Joburg, going to have a passenger railway network on that line. That's going to really, some of the major traffic routes in South Africa and even to neighboring countries, make it much cheaper, much faster to get people to travel there. Similarly, between Joburg and Mbombela and Mpumalanga. Similarly, with a high-speed train between Johannesburg and Durban, I think the target there is a train which can go about 360 kilometers an hour. So it would take you about an hour and a half or so to take a train from Joburg to Durban. So that's going to make it very fast for people to travel long distances. It's going to reduce the number of people on these long distance roads. It's going to reduce the wear and tear on these roads, the money spent maintaining them. It's going to really make travel, trade, tourism between these destinations much more efficient and so on. You'll see a lot of jobs being developed in the construction of these train lines, maintaining of them, the building of these trains, etc. But also when people begin to see in neighboring states in Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Namibia, etc., Zambia, and so forth, South Africa can produce these passenger rails, the trains, etc., the skills to maintain the network. That's going to attract customers in these countries too, which by the nature will be too small as a country. Like Botswana wouldn't have the capacity ever to build rails. It's just not, or train carriages. It's just not big enough of a country. But if they can get them from South Africa next door, quickly, cheaply, etc., high quality. Um, if you find that our railway network, we can be in the same gauge as them, that trains can move seamlessly across borders. That's going to help boost economic integration, create jobs, and so forth. That can also then be expanded to the freight railway network as well. South Africa made a huge mistake in the previous decade to buy freight trains from another country. That country, those companies didn't want to pay taxes here. Those allegations of corruption and caused real problems when those companies refused to supply the parts, the maintenance needed to maintain these trains. So South Africa reviving its railway capacity to produce trains and the parts will also have a beneficial impact for transit, for freight rail. That's going to be good for mining, for manufacturing, for agriculture, for jobs. It's going to be good for the state to collect taxes from those companies who are able to sell the goods quickly, etc. And again, benefit the region. So that's a major, major milestone. Often we don't always see these positive developments. Often we do focus on the negative headlines and we miss some of the major positive changes, which we'll see not just workers benefiting directly through new jobs, but see businesses benefiting. So PRASA, the Passenger Rail Authority, also announced new plans to help build shopping centers next to its train stations. So that's good to create local jobs. It's also good for workers when they can buy the household goods on the way home from work at the train station, save them time taking trains or taxis or buses to shopping centers when they can get on the way home at the train station. It also helps to create a sense of ownership and inclusion for local communities in the well-being of the train network, so they can help maintain and protect those trains networks, protect them from local gangs, from criminal syndicates who often want to vandalize or strip them, etc. So that's a really positive thing. And at times we must really applaud when we see good news and not just always focus, which is natural, on the negative news. So I think that let's take a little bit of a break again and we'll come back in a few minutes.
Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality. This is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership.
Hey, hi, I think we're back now. I think we've got our guest with us now, Mr. Vincent Tao. Vincent is from the Chartered University of Technology, TUT. He's a technology station and mechanical manager there. So Vincent, I think thank you for making time. Appreciate that. And perhaps we can allow you just to introduce yourself a little bit. What's the kind of work you're involved in? And then, yeah, we can have a bit of an open discussion, so to speak. Over to you.
Okay, thank you for inviting me in the show. Much appreciated for sharing some work with the listeners. My name is Vincent Tao, working for Tshwane University of Technology, heading technology station in chemicals. Our role is to make sure all the program that I'm heading, it's one of the technology stations that is funded by Technology Innovation Agency, which is the agency that is also reporting to Department of Science and Technology, or Department of Science and Innovation, if I were to be correct. Now, the main aim of the technology station is to support the small medium enterprise in terms of technical intervention. So what I mean by that is that we develop products, or we assist them to develop products, and then after that we transfer the technology towards them. If I were to take example, you get someone who wants to develop a chemical for any industry, but at the same time, the small enterprise or an individual with an idea or a student will come up with a concept. And we look at the concept and say, okay, you want to develop automotive paint as an example. That will last for a number of years as a claim. Then you look at it, we look at the project, because we are working also with the academics in the chemical engineering and chemistry department. What we'll do is then we then work on the research activity or the research product, and after that, once we are done, we transfer the technology towards the small enterprise. It could be a small enterprise in the community, or the student within the university, or any other university, or someone who come from any other program such as NYDA or any small business ministry. So our core focus again is to make sure that at the end of the day, someone will walk out with something and go and sell the products to the market and make a living, or grow the business, and maybe sometimes the others, they will export the product in other countries. And one of the services again is to make sure that we continuously assist them in testing and analysis. Someone will walk in again with a product. It could be cosmetics, it could be cleaning chemicals, and say, I'm applying for a tender, but I'm unable to enter into the tender because I'm not quite sure about the quality of the product. Then we'll test the product in line with SABS standards, because whatever that the SABS is doing also have the machine in our university, or the lab that we are running, and we test according to the right specification. And then after that, they will give the results to them. The third leg is when we offer training, chemical training. We've got 18 qualifications that we are registered with with QCTO, where if you ask me, they are ranging from level 2 to level 5. Maybe just to take an example in that regard, to say, here is Vincent, he's manufacturing chemicals in rural area, or a student or disadvantaged community, then he doesn't have a qualification. Only what they have is matric or grade 12. But you could see that this person's got a potential in terms of the business or the technology that he's seeking from the technology station that we're running. Then we'll then avail the program. Out of 18, let me take example so that it makes sense to the listeners, to say, this person doesn't have qualification, but we'll offer them surface coating qualification. Surface coating qualification, it runs for 12 months, but 4 months theoretical, and the remaining months go to the industry. Surface coating, if we were to explain it, is when you get a qualification for people are working in the paint industry, for an example, Dulux, Plascon, then that person having the qualification is able to knock to those companies to say, look, I've got a qualification. Are you able to absorb me? So that we create an environment where there's no hope, but at the end of the day, the individual will have a hope. Because what we're saying is that as much as university can produce white collars, but then our program is also cater someone who will then not having hope to say, here is a chemical qualification. You are able to knock in various doors to apply for a job. In case you're not coming out as an entrepreneurial person, then you'll have an alternative. And then that package will also include the technology transfer. As I said, we're going to show you how to mix the product. We call it technology demonstration or technology transfer. And then we transfer the know-how to those individual or a registered company until such time he created the market and sell the product, creating business. The other leg is when, because we're within the university, someone will come up with an idea, but that idea will look at it and say, look, we're unable to solve it overnight, but this product needs a research. The research needs to be done. Now, because we are working with professors and academics, then we'll pull an expert within the university to say, look, come on board, assist us in solving this problem. After solving the problem, whether the problem is going to be solved by a master student or a PhD student, at the end of the day, the technology will still end up being transferred to the small enterprise. As an example, if I were to take another example, we've got a crisis with water in rural area, then we may come up with a simple model of maybe the sachets that will make sure that you've got a drinkable water, right? So by the end of the day, that technology will then transfer to the potential SMME or an individual in the community. And after that, they'll have to manufacture themselves, not the university. That's how we create the whole opportunity towards the individual or the SMME. The last one is when now we say, you've got a company, but you're struggling in terms of the operations. You don't know how to operate the machine, or we produce 10 products instead of producing 15 products because not knowing how to operate the equipment. So then we have the technician available on site to go on site and start assisting that particular enterprise. Whether the problem will take them 3 days, 5 days, but at least at the end of the day, we have solved the problem. Then the SMME will realize a maximum profit. So those are the services that we offer towards the small enterprise, which is then as being mandated by science and innovation to make sure that we are solving technical problems. You'll understand that there are quite a number of entities in government where they will assist companies with business plan, marketing strategy, and so on. But we said on our side to say, look, let us become, or let us complement those entities, because those entities are not able to come up with technical solution. That's when we come on board and solve the problem for the small enterprise or an individual, as I said, who doesn't have hope. As I said, we've got 20 qualifications that we have accredited on. We're gonna start rolling them out as from next year, February. So I think I'll stop that as my brief. And yeah, we can have the conversation, Matthew. Thank you.
Okay. No, thanks. I mean, that sounds like you do a lot of work, a lot of varied work, a lot of high
Yeah.
impact work. Sounds quite intimidating.
Yeah.
I don't know how you manage to do it. Are there kind of like successes that you can cite? Some of the kind of personal success stories you managed to help unlock with getting people to set up their own little business, etc. What are the human stories, some of the positive, success stories you managed to help facilitate or support or help unlock, so to speak?
Yeah. I'll take a few examples so that it makes clear to the listeners. There was one gentleman called Edward Mushole. He came to our program seeking for how to produce or how to come up with cleaning chemicals. Yeah. So this gentleman used to work for enterprise company as a cleaner. And then he approached our program, particularly myself, and said, Vincent, are you able to help me to produce cleaning chemicals? I want to supply them. And you can imagine this guy doesn't have a qualification. He's only having matric from rural area in Zanin. Then he came to Gauteng and said, look, I'm a cleaner now, but my vision is to make sure that I want to produce this chemical to compare with the giant, to compete with the giant. Then we end up going to the lab and formulate the products according to the right specifications. We test that in-house. We end up sending the products to SABS for quality assurance to make sure that whatever that we do, it mustn't say it comes from the university, because universities have got professors, but they may not align the quality test with the SABS, but rather say, let us do the research, because they're becoming excited to do the research. But we end up knowing that this gentleman, his vision is to produce and face the market. Then we end up transferring the technology to the company called ChemFresh. And fast forward, the gentleman that time, I remember he managed to get Shell from Spa in Germiston's few of the spas, supplying spas with the package that we have come up with in terms of products, quality product, SABS endorsement, and then he ended up getting shelf. Fast forward, he ended up getting the big contract from government. And if you listen his story, the way he's telling me, started with 78 rand. But if you go to any Pick and Pay, whether you're in Africa, whether you're any Pick and Pay that you can think of, whether it's in rural area, you'll find his product. If you go to the aisle of dishwashing liquid, as an example, you'll find other competitors, and then you'll find his product. His product, you'll find his product under ChemFresh, but also Pick and Pay suggested that because this product is in good quality, are you able to produce on our behalf as a buy local, Pick and Pay buy local? If you go to Pick and Pay, then you will see his face, you'll see the buy local product. And he's now turning 250 million as a turnover. Then if you ask me the impact that it has contributed to the society, one, job creation, two, sales, three, he also come to the university and recruit the very same, the students that we are training them, realizing the fact that he got the knowledge from us, but also making sure that in terms of African market, he's now breaking through. I was told now that he's also supplying clicks checkers, so which for me it becomes the best vision ever if you think of where he's coming from and so on. But at the same time, in it, we also train him theoretical programs that I'm talking about, because people like this, they're unable to go to the university and study 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, but they've got a talent, they've got a vision. So we end up enrolling him for a program, and then he attended a program. Today he's got a chemical manufacturing qualification, which you cannot get it from any other university because they're not offering it. They all offer degree. But we're saying let us have something similar like a trade, so that even someone questions to say, yeah, but I know how to manufacture chemicals. So that is the kind of the package that I spoke about in terms of the services. But today, as I'm speaking, we're becoming proud to say this is our product. If you go to any Pick and Pay, we are becoming so happy to say, yeah, we have produced the product. If you look at the university, we normally say that not all of them can go to industry, but you find that there are some of the students that are entrepreneurial orientated. They've got a vision to say, I don't want to work for the big giants, don't want to work for the Sasol of today, but I want to become the Sasol of today myself. So we then get a student sometimes where you say, okay, are you interested in the following programs? Then they'll say, yeah, I've got a degree in chemical engineering, but I've got this idea. So one of the examples, again, there are quite a number of examples, but I'll just take the one that I'm thinking of now, where the student did a chemical engineering and said, look, I don't want to enroll. I don't want to go and look for a job, but I want to work for myself. So we end up training her how to produce perfumes and cosmetics. We went also through and this one, it came as an intern to the lab. So the difference between the first one and the current one, the Pick and Pay one, it came from the community. The current one that I'm talking about for cosmetics and perfume, she came from internal university with a proper qualification, right? So that's why I wanted to distinguish between the two. And now we transfer the know-how, how to manufacture perfumes, how to manufacture, various cosmetics products. So if you ask me today, the university is proud about the student. She's got a shelf, the shop in Mainland Mall. She has opened now the new one in Randburg Mall. Next year, she's intending to open another shop in Polokwane Mall. So you could see the confidence of a student. Now she's doing very well. And she's now starting employing other students to come and work for her. So that's the kind of an impact that the program is offering towards the students and towards the community at large, as mandated by the Department of Science and Technology. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really impressive stuff, especially helping people to set up build their own product, build their own company, find
Yeah.
customers and sustain them.
Yeah.
That's what we need to grow the economy, to create jobs.
True. And again, once we have this, and I've seen that once we support them having the prototype, other government agencies say, no, we're here. We can fund you the equipment. We are here. We can offer you this service. We are here. So because they believe in the product that they produce. Yeah. So there will be quite a number of opportunities that are following up in this regard. Yeah.
Especially they're
And
beginning to now export to neighboring states too, because now you're beginning to create a larger customer base.
yeah, I think we have touched on something that is important. We had a workshop yesterday where our board, one of the board members, suggested that we must partner with SICOSA, which is the export entity, because they realize that we support the small enterprise. Now, the challenge is that you'll find that the market is in Ghana, but they don't know how to go through the process. So we'll be partnering with them and making sure that we offer, not to say long-term training, a day or two workshop, so that this small enterprise understand the system and the processes that they will go through when they want to export in other markets. And again, programs under the DTIC Cosmetics Desk, they'll also evaluate them to say, you are offering this program, you're offering this product, you went through this export readiness workshop, you know what is required. So then they're able to recommend them to go and exhibit in any other countries, whether it's in Europe, Asia, US, or Africa, as long as there's a market there. And then they will then support the small enterprise, go to those countries to create network, to create business, and so forth. So the service that we're offering, it may not end up with us, but it may also end up with other entities that will grow the business. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what kind of support are they able to tap into from the Department of Trade and Industry or the Department of Small Business Development? Or is it useful support? Is it difficult for them to access? Is it helpful, or is it just, and how would they find it?
From our side, we work with, and I will be very specific, cosmetics desk, DTIC. They are not funding, but they are able to refer them to the relevant entities. And you can imagine that if you then been referred by the DTIC as the bigger voice, you are able to get the support from other entities. Yeah. And I must say, sometimes they also refer other enterprise to us to support them as well, in our technology station. Yeah.
Okay. And do you guys have partnerships with like private banks or other private sector institutions which also can provide advice around training or access to capital, access to clients, etc.? Like what Pick and Pay
For,
was doing, so to speak.
yeah. For now, because we are running the mandate, but we realize that there's quite a lot that we can do within the industry, particularly sustaining the technology station. And then we realize that if tomorrow the funder, who is the government or the agency from as a tier, can close tab, then it means the programs it's gonna be closed. But we are now coming up with a model to partner with the industry to say they've got the budget for skills development. We are able to use the programs that we're credited on to train staff, to train communities, making sure that we transfer the technology know-how to those disadvantaged communities. And by so doing this as a vision in the next 5 years, we believe that we'll partner with a lot of industry. I must say that one of the industry that they came on board recently is Kibela Rail, where we are now developing products for them because other products that are coming from overseas. So they want to localize those products. And they will be using the technology station to make sure that we develop those products. We then transfer the know-how to an individual within a community or a small enterprise. But at the same time, you'll find that there are some of the disadvantaged individuals, as I said before, where someone will say, no, I don't want to run a business, but I want to have a certificate. Then, because there's a budget sitting with the with that company for skills development, then we are able to train them. As an example, occupational health and safety, level 5. I mean, there's no any company that won't require a personnel to have occupational health and safety as a representative. We then now offer, okay, also we have, I'll just take some few examples of the qualification just to make sense to the listeners as well. Quality inspector. If you go to any program, university or TVET, you may not find quality inspectors, but we've accredited on quality inspector. If you ask me, all the sectors will require quality inspector. So then we are bringing hope to someone who doesn't have hope and have a qualification. But tomorrow that particular person will say, yeah, but I'm an inspector in the construction company. And that person starts getting employed in those companies. So yeah, there are quite various opportunities that we can work with, especially with the large companies. And if you ask me again, some of these large companies, they've got a crisis in terms of the research. So they will give us an assignment or an exercise to the technology station to say, are you able to do this research for us? Because there's a serious problem in the production line. Then we come up with the research. Then we transfer or we bring solutions to those industries. The industry will then set aside funding or money towards those solutions. But at the same time, because university is also having its own KPIs in terms of the research output. Now, that particular research, it will then result into producing the master student or the PhD. You see, so the university also benefit as much as we support the enterprise out of these programs. Yeah.
And just to unpack a bit more around Gibella, because I was actually, before you came on, I was mentioning it, that, Gibella is driving the revival of the local passenger rail or passenger train manufacturing capacity here at Nigel. And this week there was a
Yeah.
big event with the Minister for Transport, a bit of a celebration, a well overdue, well-earned celebration of having produced the 300th locally produced passenger rail train. And I think there's that 60% of the components of those trains are locally manufactured. So kind of get what
Yeah.
are the kind of those components? But is there space to increase that 60% to 70, 80%, etc.? And is there
Cool.
space to even begin to export to neighboring countries too? Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, etc. Who would also have the
Yeah.
demand, and why should they go and buy trains from far away in France or China or the US or Spain when you can
True.
get it next door and just have it put in the tracks and come over the border quite quickly?
Yeah. And I must say that we've got capacity and experience and expertise to do that. If we come together, and I'm not referring to one university, maybe where I'm coming from, but we've got quite a number of them, and then we join hands or join minds and come up with an innovative product, and that can be localized or better, the ones that are being exported. But it's to take advantage of all the resources that we have to make sure that we end up producing 80% of products locally. And then I'm supporting, because at the end of the day, we will be creating the industry. Creating industry will then result to employment as well, which then bring hope to say, yes, we've got various companies. These companies are supplying back to Gibella, and 80% of the components are local, being procured locally. For me, it's just one of the examples that I'll take and maybe promote it in the entire ecosystem.
No, just it's exciting stuff, because I think often when we read the media headlines, we just see the negative stories, corruption, retrenchments, etc. But we also figure South Africa has all the materials to become a winning nation. We have a diversified economy there's almost no product that
Yeah,
we can't produce. I mean, South Africa is a country which produces nuclear bombs, so produces cars.
exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, true.
we produce small planes to export to the US. We produce yachts. It's even on agriculture. There's very little products that South Africa can't produce, doesn't produce. Um, Minerals too. So we're much more fortunate than an Angola, for example, which is heavily dependent upon diamonds and oil, or
Yeah,
a Zambia, which is dependent upon copper, because when the prices fluctuate, then deep trouble, and
exactly.
also those don't kind of create the amount of jobs you require. There's been some discussion with the trade discussions with the US, and it's something South Africa has discussed for decades. We haven't done much about it, about beneficiating minerals within South Africa, other products too, because that's a key way to kind of creating jobs going forward as well. So it's a kind of, I know it might be it's difficult, but because you guys are already given support to get better on passenger rail, are those the kind of things you've looked at as
Yeah.
well? Value chain for beneficiation to do that as well, or is it a more of a difficult
Mm.
thing to do?
Yeah, Matthews, I'll be saying that, for instance, if let's talk about beneficiation from the mine products, and we say, here is the budget. Let us take this budget to one program, right?
Hi, is it me or
And
am I frozen or?
I think it's you, it's on your side. I'm not quite sure it's me or not. Yeah, but if we were to invest in, I'll take example with a mine, maybe to say, let us develop. Okay, we are mining chrome as an example, but out of chrome, then we are able to get 20 or 100 products. Okay, now if we say, let us go and look at the budget. Let's take all this budget and create state-of-the-art technology and produce 100 products out of those minerals. You see, at the end of the day, you have created 100 products. At the end of the day, we have created maybe 50 companies,
Hi, can you hear
right?
me?
Now, 50 companies,
I think I might
I
be
can hear you
frozen.
very well. Yeah, I think so. Do you hear me now?
Okay, so I think I might be frozen my
Hello?
part. But if you can hear me, then it might be useful to also hear what are some of the kind of challenges you've experienced as well. What do you think some of the things that could be done to address them?
Challenges on the SMMEs or general Matthews? Do you hear me? Matthews? Do you hear me? I'm losing you. Is it me? Hi, Matthews. Are you hearing me?
From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality. This is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership. From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality. This is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership.
Matthews, are you back?
Okay, I think I'm back. Sorry, I had got
I think
frozen for a while. No, sorry, I just
Okay.
wanted to check. I don't know if you heard me, but what are the kind of some of the challenges you've experienced? What do you think needs to be done to address some of those challenges? Because one can imagine there must be a thousand and one kind of difficulties people encounter, and how do you really try to address them? What can be done to assist entrepreneurs who experience bumps on the road?
Okay. The challenges with the entrepreneurs, Matthew, sometimes they will require something that they can resolve it now. For example, you look at an entrepreneur and say, "Government, please buy me the equipment." And sometimes you don't necessarily need an equipment, but
Hi,
rather
Vincent, can
go
you hear
to
me?
any. I can hear you now. Do you hear me? I can hear you very well. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Uh, Maybe to answer the question is that maybe some of the challenges that the enterprise are facing, others they need to collaborate amongst each other and create a one voice to that particular business so that they win. And I've said earlier on that they need to sometimes they will require equipment, but instead of
Okay,
the
seems to be some
entrepreneur.
technological challenges. I was frozen or Vincent is frozen. I think there's some gremlins with this platform. But I think, yeah, we can wrap up now. Um, I think just to kind of say thanks to Vincent. I think Vincent is really doing amazing work. It's not often you see these kind of success stories. I did not even know there was this product. I'm going to go now check it at Pick and Pay. So I think those are kind of success stories. And I think Vincent also raised an important point about how do you not just unlock budding entrepreneurs, might be workers, might be unemployed, etc. But how do you give support to them? And I think one critical thing is how do you support locally produced goods, whether it's the shoes or clothes you wear, or the food you consume, or the furniture that we utilize, or the cars we drive. But even apparently the chemicals we use to clean them as well. So I think those are the kind of success stories. Because if you want to grow South Africa's economy, you want to create jobs, you want to break down the legacy of apartheid, we want to give the state the money it needs to provide public services that society and the economy depend upon, then a simple thing for free is to actually just buy locally produced goods. So I think we'll call it a night here. We've had some gremlins with the technology, so apologies for that. But I think, yeah, thanks to Vincent. He's really doing wonderful work. And I think those are the kind of success stories that will make South Africa a winning nation. So, yeah, I think we'll call it a night here. And I'm sure you'll see more on Korean Daba's website about other discussions and activities going forward. So, thanks to everybody who logged in, and good night. And thanks to Vincent once again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the
Yeah.
listeners and the Matthews. Thank you for inviting me.
From the balance sheet to the streets, from board strategy to worker reality, this is CI Business, where leadership means labor and purpose drives profit. We connect policy to people and data to development. CI Business, the sound of Africa's responsible leadership.